mouth breather. It strikes me that the philosophy pursued by most modern feminists and social justice warriors overall can perhaps best be summarized as a radical degree of anti-elitism. And as someone who has strong feelings about the kind of on both sides of the debate there, I think that I can give a somewhat semi-unique perspective, because I don't fully agree with either of the sides of this debate. This is going to be a lot more, this is going to be an unstructured video even for me. You usually have some kind of idea of where the conversation is going. When I recorded what I think to date has been my best video, which is the anglerfish, I knew all of the topics that I was going to bring up and just kind of meandered my way through them. With this, I'm just kind of starting with a jumping off point and trying to get there. Not trying to get anywhere specific, but just seeing where it leads. The thought was touched off while I was watching for the second time what is currently my new favorite song. It's by an artist named The Fintronaut, who makes metal for the purpose of mocking the more ridiculous aspects of social justice warrior culture, and he has a song called "Oh Soy Malia," which is a anthem style song about the short-lived Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, later renamed something else, where the acronym, instead of CHAZ, it was CHOP, and I don't remember. I don't know what the OP stands for. But anyway, for like 10 days, there was this attempted secession from the U.S. government in. If I did research before I opened my mouth, I would know which city this was in. I think it was Seattle, but don't quote me on that. Wherever it happened, it didn't go well. The attempt by a bunch of people to create their own model society with no rules whatsoever, but a cultural focus on what they thought the community needed, very quickly fell apart, which is not at all surprising. It reminded me more than a little of a less extreme but somewhat similar in philosophy experiment in my home city of Minneapolis, known as the Minnehaha Free Space. Minnehaha is the name of the street that it was on. It was a building that was inhabited by a narco-feminist collective of some sort. And I visited there on one occasion. My mother was there a number of times. My mother is kind of a second-wave feminist, so she has some overlap with the attitudes present among modern quasi-third-wave feminists. She's not on the internet, so she's not down with what is still being called the third wave, although I think there should probably have been a fourth wave by now. If it was up to me, I would say that the third wave is, the first wave is going all the way back to the suffragettes in the 1890s, and generally it's considered that first wave feminism was about getting women the vote, which happened in 1920, so that was a long time ago. Second wave feminism was about securing abortion rights, which was mostly in through the 60s, and so my mom was lined up with those people. And then I would say third wave feminism was kind of about the idea of kind of about the concept of better representation of women in popular culture, and you saw a lot of that kind of thing in terms of the 90s. There are a lot of TV shows from the 90s which have a extremely transparent girl power kind of a theme. I think of that as third wave feminism, and I would characterize what I would call fourth wave feminism as having been single-handedly founded by Anita Sarkeesian, and she dropped her videos in 2012, and then in 2013 the smartphone exploded worldwide. So for the past 7-8 years, Twitter has been a thing, and social media has been a driving social force, where in 2010 nobody had ever even said the word social media before, even though there were similar things called, MySpace was sort of a prototype of Facebook, and it was very popular at the time. But for whatever reason, it was just during the 2010s that this technology kind of exploded, and I think that the invention of the iPhone had a lot to do with that. But anyway, the feminists these days are still calling, they're mostly not calling themselves, but they're still being spoken of as third wave feminists. Nobody has officially declared a fourth wave, but I think that this is more a question of self-consciousness. In terms of attitude, I would definitely say that there's a distinction between the slightly whiny but mostly rational third wave desire to have more shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer on TV versus the modern fourth wave complaint culture, where everything has to have a hashtag talking about how unfair it is that manspreading, mansplaining, man-slamming, all of this nonsense, and these data points well up and then get replaced as they lose their popularity. But anyway, all of this is a digression. My point in bringing it all up was, like I said, there was there was a free space, a rented building, or not even a building, just like an office space in a building on Minnehaha Street, where these feminists hung out and organized various events. The one and only time that I went there, I don't remember anything else that I saw or did, other than they had a kind of a cool chess set with carved rock pieces. That was like the only positive impression I had of the place, was that chess set and maybe one or two books, which I have now forgotten. But the impression I got from them was very much that they had no real plan. At one point, I noticed that the building had a for sale or for rent sign in it, and I asked them, this is you're super committed to having this space. What are you going to do if they buy the building out from under you and kick you out? And they basically admitted that they had no plan for that, and in fact, that is exactly what happened. So, this does kind of tie into to the whole concept that I'm rambling about, because basically movements like this arise out of a frustration with hierarchy, a fairly short-sighted emotional reaction to, oh, this guy is a jerk and I'm sick of taking orders from him. I wish I could go have a place where there are no orders, no one's in charge, and I can just do whatever I want. And from that very understandable but very naive beginning, trying to actually make that work on a governmental system is basically like trying to drive a car with no steering wheel and no gas pedal and no brakes. It's maybe not quite as impossible as that would be, but it's sort of equivalent to, like, if you just have one button to make the car go, and you have no ability to react to suddenly having a deer run out in front of your car. You have no ability to swerve the car out of the way. It's just automatically tries to drive to wherever it wants to go and doesn't take account any of the things that you might have to deal with along the way. That's a better illustration, and it kind of goes along with the idea that an iPhone basically has just like one button and a little more control than that because of the touch screen. But there's one of the reasons why I've resisted getting a mobile phone as long as I have, besides all the other reasons why I don't like them. One big thing is I learned to touch type when I was in high school. It's basically the only useful thing I ever got out of my high school education in the 90s. And to me, a keyboard has to be a physical thing so that I can operate it by touch and just, feel my fingertips on the keyboard, feel that the one that my index finger is resting on has the little bump that they put on them, and without having to look down at my hands, I can type 80 words a minute because I know exactly where all of the keys are, and I've been doing it for more than 10 years. If you give me a iPad with a digital keyboard on it, I can't do that because there's no physical reaction. My fingers feel the same regardless of where they are on the screen. So until they make iPads with some sort of vibration function or something that will tactilely react for the benefit of people who are not looking at their screen while they're typing, which wouldn't make sense with an iPad being the way it is anyway. So they may or may not ever actually do anything like that. I need control. I need technology that gives me the ability to know what the heck I'm doing. And if, the lack of control that I feel from not having, where I was trying to go with this is, not only do I need a keyboard, but if given my druthers, I want the, for lack of a better term, clickiest keyboard I can get. I want one where there's a very loud and definite sound and feeling every time I strike a key. And the industry, back when keyboards were still being manufactured at all, they practically aren't anymore, but except for things like laptops and those play into what I'm talking about. More and more modern keyboards are designed to be as reactionless as possible. There's this idea that a sleek modern technology should be quiet and the keys aren't raised very far above the surface and they don't move very much and they don't make a sound and there's almost no feeling. All of this is like the exact opposite of what I want. It probably parallels other movements and other similar movements in technology over the years, where refrigerators have motors that are quieter, so you can't tell when they're running or not. Washing machines. I think I read something in a book once about how washing machines initially didn't make noise, and then the women who were buying them complained that they couldn't tell whether the thing was on or not, so they were intentionally engineered to make more noise. I'm not sure if that's true. Because, as usual, my memory is not giving me all the details, so I can only guess whether it's actually accurate. So, all of this, numerous digressions, as is usual for me. What I'm trying to get at with this is the philosophy behind movements like Black Lives Matter and intersectional feminism. Black Lives Matter really would have been better off sticking to just the one issue of let's end police violence, but these feminist type, social justice type people keep getting involved in movements and kind of tearing them apart, and I'm sure that's not their intention. They're not like actively trying to sabotage the thing, but they just have no idea what they're doing, and their involvement always causes problems because whenever any sort of a problem comes up, they actively go out of their way not to try and solve it, because if you become known as a guy who solves or a person who solves problems, then everybody kind of looks up to you, and that gives you power and authority and hierarchy, and all of those things are bad because all people are equal, and we all have to we have to sit around in a circle and sing Kumbaya and talk about our feelings, and we can't ever let anything make any person more important than any other person. So there's a noble sentiment underlying some part of that, and so I have a sense of justice and equality and something resembling fairness, although I really hate the word fair. I'll explain why at some point if I haven't already. I am strongly opposed to classism, which I think is the only kind of real discrimination. Again, this is a topic that I either have talked about or will talk about. So for now I'm just mentioning it in passing. I strongly oppose classism, and I tend to oppose elitism, but I also, as I started to say at the beginning, I have a sense of this person is just worthless being the automatic default for any person who has not proved their value. I don't think you have to do very much. I think that you can prove your value by, like, running one really good session of D&D, as far as I'm concerned. Like, that could justify your entire life. But if you never do anything, if you literally are just a hungry mouth sitting around demanding to be fed, and all you ever do is take up space and complain about how things aren't the way that you want them to be, like, you should be required at least once in your life to produce some sort of proof that you deserve the oxygen that you're consuming by continuing to breathe, and the excrement that you expel every day by eating and digesting your food and then producing waste byproducts. So, the idea that human life is automatically valuable and that every person deserves whatever is necessary to keep them alive no matter what is ridiculous, because to some extent, possibly not literally 100%, but to some extent life on this planet is a zero-sum game. Some resources are limited, some actions carry a cost. If doesn't matter how nice of a person you are, if you shit into the city's water supply, you are going to infect people with diseases. You can claim that you're an innocent person who's just trying to survive all you like, but a certain level of negligence and incompetence does make you actively harmful to your community, regardless of any personal choice to not be so. So, I'm for giving people the benefit of the doubt as much as is vaguely reasonable, and I define the reasonableness of that fairly generously, all things told. But there has to be a line drawn, and there are some people out there who are so anti-elitist and so anti-hierarchical that they can't stand the thought of any line being drawn for any reason, and they don't comprehend how completely ridiculous it is. It's like trying to drive with no speed limits, no stop signs, absolutely nothing directing how traffic must flow. That would result in huge numbers of car accidents, and I think everybody knows that, but for some reason some people just cannot generalize that concept to, I consider myself an incarnate force of chaos placed on this earth to destroy the very notion of law, and yet some laws are absolutely necessary. They maybe don't have to be enforced through a court system, that's the big thing that I'm against, even if it's just a question of, that guy's just even if the worst punishment that exists is everybody agrees you're a jerk and stops inviting you to parties, that is still a punishment. That is still enforcing some level of consequence on people's bad choices. And I think we absolutely have to have something like that. We don't have to have our current the rich get richer system, and I really think that we would benefit a lot if we could find some way to get rid of that, but it is only a really stupid person tries to solve a problem by immediately doing the exact opposite. Oh, this person's on fire. Well, the only thing that we can possibly do is douse them in liquid nitrogen so that they're frozen from head to toe. It's just completely stupid. That is not how you solve a problem of any variety. So all these people who think that the answer to an unjust hierarchical system is a complete absence of any form of hierarchy whatsoever, it's just, I'm sorry, those people are just dumb. You can't let people who are that incompetent have any degree of power or influence whatsoever. We just have to find some way of putting some sense into those people's heads and not allowing them to, let them exist as long as long as there is not a severe resource shortage to the point where keeping them alive would cost the lives of other better people. We can certainly keep them alive. We don't have to lock them up in jail or anything, but at the very least we have to not allow them to create massive social movements that end up resulting in things like the George Floyd protest, which I don't care how much, I don't care how big of a problem you have with police killing innocent black people. It's true that does happen sometimes, and yes, that's unacceptable. Having a 7-day riot that burns down half of the city is also unacceptable. I'm sorry, but that's a very... I think I'm being pretty generous by drawing the line right there and saying we have to have some kind of a standard. That's a pretty good standard to have. 20-minute long video now. Hopefully, at the moment I can't upload anything because my internet connection took a shit on me, and I lost my internet 2 weeks ago and have been procrastinating like crazy, so it should have been fixed by now if I wasn't being a lazy fuck. So this is like the third video I've recorded while having no idea whether it will ever be possible for me to upload them again. I'm assuming at some point I'll figure it out. But whatever. Some people just write in a diary that no one will ever read. This might be the equivalent of that. I don't know, it's fun.